Hey everybody, this is Nick. Yes, I changed the name back to Nicky Bobby. So what? That's what I felt like doing. Today we're going to talk about gun violence. Last night there was a shooting in Providence, Rhode Island. 9 people were shot. 1 was injured by glass shattering, and none of them are expected to not survive. I have a video here of Providence Mayor Lorza talking about the situation. The reason why I'm talking about this today is because the last video we made, or the one before that, was in response to Providence police and Rhode Island legislature eliminating the Law Enforcement Bill of Rights. So today we are looking at them cry out for gun control, which we know doesn't work based on Chicago, based on cities like Baltimore and all these broken policies that, all right, what is gun control? Were all these 9 guys that were participants in this shooting, did they all have their guns legally? I would venture to say that's a hard no. They're also talking about community engagement, which does help. When they participate with the police and provide pertinent information to help solve the cases, which is combated by the anti-snitch culture, that of which has created a big issue in today's society as far as prosecuting these people who are committing these violent crimes. And again, just a continuation of all these busted policies. We're going to talk about today what the police can do, and we're going to review what Mayor Lorza believes is the best course of action. But before we get to that, I just wanted to say that I do have my Aloha background. We're going to do the Hawaiian thing today. As the weather's getting nicer, had a little fire outside. It was nice. And we're going to start segueing the channel. Going to do a music video coming up soon, so be on the lookout for that. But this just had to be talked about today. All right, guys, let's get into this.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, and I want to begin by thanking all the members of the community that are here with us today. I can't name everyone individually, but I want to recognize some of the folks that you'll be hearing from today, beginning particularly with some of the representatives and colleagues in government from this area. I want to recognize State Senator Tiara Mack and also the Council President Pro Temp Pedro Espinal. Pedro. We also have the Commissioner of Public Safety, who you'll be hearing from in just a second. And we also have the Executive Director of the NonViolence Institute, Cedric Huntley.
The Executive Director of the NonViolence Institute.
As you can see, we're also joined by several leaders in the faith community here in Providence and throughout the state. And we're gathered here today because we had a terrible incident that happened right here on California Ave last night. And there are just so many reasons to speak out.
Yeah, he said the wrong street. It was Carolina Street, not California Ave.
First of all, what happened yesterday is not normal, and we can't allow it to be normalized. We're here today to declare and to state clearly that in our community, we're not going to allow these kinds of things to happen. And if and when they do happen, that they're not going to go unnoticed.
Like, how are you going to prevent these things from happening? You want to take away power from police officers. How are you going to prevent this from happening? I know what works. You know what works too. Tough laws on guns. That's what works. You know, I will say this. Guns and gang violence fall to the root of evil, which is money. Money can be gained with drugs. So the drug money guns, gangs. That's what you got. If you get cut off the head, so you cut off the drugs. Okay, let's just say hypothetically, they legalized guns. They legalized drugs. And they took the money they made in taxes off that drugs and spent it on addiction recovery as opposed to incarceration. Because in my experience, it seems like you're either going to use drugs and become addicted to them and need recovery support, or you're going to end up in jail because of the criminality that comes with that sort of culture, which is ultra stigmatized because drugs are illegal. So, yes, I believe drugs should be made legalized and that we should offer support to those people rather than incarceration. I also believe that would lower the violent crime. That would eliminate gun violence because now, what are you shooting at each other for? Money? What are you going to sell? If you're not selling drugs, what are you going to sell? Typically, the richest neighborhoods in this country are some of the poorest. They have the most money sitting in a duffel bag underneath a bed in some crack house. Why? Because of the crack, because of the drugs, because of the fentanyl and the heroin and whatever other drug people are taking. As a progressive country, or at least that's what it seems like it's good, the culture of society is going into that sort of ultra progressive. Why don't they deal with the problem and say, if addiction is the problem, if drugs are the problem, if guns are the problem, how do we deal with it? Guns, these people used illegally possessed firearms. They didn't go down, get their license to carry, go through the whole rhythm and rhyme to have a firearm. That didn't happen. These guns are either stolen or illegally made with serial numbers scratched off, you name it. Why do they have this? Because of the drugs, right? Or they just like shooting at each other? There has to be a reason. Who makes more money? How do you establish which gang is more lucrative than the next? It's not just because they hug street poles in a certain neighborhood. It's because they're pushing a business in that neighborhood. For a progressive country, we're pretty ignorant not to see that. If the drugs are at the center of this, why aren't we legalizing the drugs and offering support to these people rather than just incarceration? I haven't heard a politician say that, and I don't expect them to either, because the drug game
And they're not going to
is making money.
go without a community response. We're also here today because we know that the people impacted by gun violence last night aren't just the individuals that were on that balcony, but it's all of the neighbors and it's the entire community. And so we're here to let them know that they're not alone, that they have an entire community and a support system behind them that's here to be moral support and to lend support in every which way.
Is any of that support that he's talking about going to end gun violence? The community supports you, gang members, and those who have a gun and might go out and kill each other. Those of you who are passing on drugs to each other, right? That's basically what this is saying. We're here to support you in any way that you need. Is that going to end gun violence? I would say that's a hard no.
That we can. What happened last night is very clear. There are too many guns, and there are too many young people in our community ready to use them.
Why? Why are they ready to use guns? Why do they have guns? You think Mayor Lors is going to answer that question?
We have to address this issue from both of those angles. We've been saying for a long time that we need to stop the flow of guns, illegal or otherwise, onto our streets.
Why? Why are there guns coming to your street just because young kids they love guns? Because those young kids are involved in criminal behavior, the element being drugs. Don't be so ignorant to the fact of society today. Drugs they're rampant. You're talking about the flow of guns that are coming there to protect drugs that operate in certain territories. This is just an ignorant conversation.
I was here last night, about a half hour after the incident occurred. And I was here a while talking with all of the police officers. And almost to a T, every single officer would tell me the same thing. They would shake their heads and tell me there are too many guns out there. They told me that even not that long ago, 5, 6 years ago, incidents like this would not happen.
All right. 5, 6 years ago. Let's think. 5, 6 years ago. You weren't defunding police about 5, 6 years ago. The culture in policing wasn't that if you do your job proactively, you're going to be crucified. In fact, it was the opposite. 5, 6 years ago, which is not all that long ago, police officers would proactively police every community because that was their job. But now you've castrated them and told them, if you do your job and something were to happen that was negligible, you were screwed. Your livelihood is gone. Your family's at risk. Go ahead, go be proactive, buddy. It's worth the gamble, isn't it? I don't think it is anymore. And Mayor Lorza hasn't figured that out yet. The flow of guns are because of what? Drugs? I can get away with it culture. These guys ain't afraid of the police because they know the police don't want anything to do with them now because the police don't want to end up on the news.
Incidents like this would not happen because there may be a drive-by, maybe one person has a gun, maybe somebody has a revolver, you let off a few shots. But what happened yesterday is just something altogether different. Yesterday, there were 5, 6, maybe even more guns involved, each one of them semi-automatic. And in a matter of seconds, you have.
So you think the difference between you using a revolver and a semi-automatic? He's trying to take ignorant people and say these guys brought a musket 5, 6 years ago, and now they bring an AR-15. No, semi-automatics have been on the streets forever, and the difference between a revolver and a semi-automatic is ambiguous depending on the size, right? You got a 6 shot, now you got a 10 shot. That's a huge difference, isn't it? This guy doesn't know nothing, doesn't know anything about guns because of his ignorant conversation here saying they had a revolver in the past. Boom, boom. Got to get your gunpowder and put it in the cylinder. No, no. A revolver is just as lethal. Anyone who knows anything about guns understands. A 1022 Ruger is just as lethal. If I shoot you in the head with a 22 caliber, it's going to be very effective. That same thing's effective no matter where you go in the range. You know, whether it be a musket all the way up to an AR-15, it's going to be effective. So they're all deadly. He's diminishing what that is and developing a perspective to everyone watching this that semi-automatic handguns are bad. That's the criteria. Can't have it. Why is there an assault on the gun? Why not an assault on the people who had the guns and why they had the guns? Drugs and criminality.
Dozens and dozens and dozens of rounds that are let off in a hail of gunfire. We as a society can't allow this to happen, and we have it in our power to make sure it doesn't happen.
Yes, you do. By enforcing gun laws, by making tougher gun laws, and eliminating the reason why criminals need guns, which is drugs, money, any criminal enterprise right underneath that, maybe prostitution. Look at these things that these guys don't have guns because, they play Xbox together. So the one Xbox team versus another Xbox team, they really hate each other. No, they're defending criminal enterprise. That's what they're doing. That's why they want guns. That's why they need guns. They're defending criminal enterprises.
We have called and we will continue to call for comprehensive and also common sense gun control.
Common sense gun control. What is common sense gun control? Background checks. Got it. You think these kids had background checks? No, they didn't. How many of them had records? Probably a lot. We already established what kind of guns they were firing, not the guns they bought at the gun store. Nope. Sorry, there's your common sense gun control, my man.
To stop the flow of these guns onto our streets. Now we also have to address the issue of so many young people, mostly in our community, being ready to use these guns in violence against each other. This is an epidemic that is sweeping the entire country, and we've been touched by it, unfortunately, as well. We're seeing shootings and a disregard for life. We're seeing more of these incidents results in critical injuries and even deaths.
You have people shooting guns at each other. Deaths to be expected. The only fortunate thing you have is that all these people have no idea how to use those guns effectively. Otherwise, you would have more deaths.
We also call on the entire community to be a part of the solution, because when these back and forths happen, people know who's responsible. Someone knows who's responsible. And we need victims in these crimes to please step up, speak to the police, give us the information, let us know who did it, and let the police officers do their job.
Which you're trying to take away, right? You don't want the police officers to do your job 2 weeks ago. Now you're asking the police to do their jobs.
To bring the perpetrators to justice, rather than believing that you have to take matters into your own hands. And then finally, to all the young people that are caught up in the game, that are involved in either gangs or caught up in gun crimes and are carrying weapons, there is a better way than resolving to gun crimes and escalating these situations to the point of potentially shooting another person. That's not the only way. There are other ways, there are better ways. And we as an entire community are here to tell our entire youth, look, if you want a way out, if you want an opportunity, if you want a summer job.
You want an opportunity? We got a summer job for you. You can clean leaves with the park and rec department, making $12 to $15 an hour. You know how much these kids are making? It is not out of the realm of possibility for a short timer to make $1,000 a day. For a nobody to make that, $2,000 to $5,000 a day. You're going to give them $12 to $15 an hour? It's like you think drug dealers make 20 grand a year. You got it all messed up. You have no concept of what the reality is. You want to get out? We'll give you a job in peer recovery or something. Oh, okay, great. I'll just give up the huge lifestyle that I have and all my friends to come join your peer recovery or your park and rec team. I don't think that's realistic. That's fantasy land on TV. That's, the love story. That's not reality. Okay? It's just a broken society, and that's not what's going to fix it.
Whatever it is that will keep you on the right path.
Making drugs legal and making the drug trade very unlucrative.
And away from the streets and away from this downward spiral of violence. We're here and we want to provide that for you. We have the blessings in our city to count on one of the best anti-violence or stop the violence kind of organizations in the entire country, the NonViolence Institute. They not only work directly with people that have been involved in crime and are looking for a way out, they're not only out there in the community trying to find ways to interrupt this cycle of violence, but they're also reaching out directly to individuals, putting their arm around them.
Sounds like they've done such a great job over the last 5 years. Sounds like they do a great job. You just got done telling us all this violent crime, all this gun crimes on the rise. How long have they been there? 5, 6 years? Sounds like they're doing phenomenal work hanging out with criminals.
Mentoring them and guiding them down a better path. Whether it's the NonViolence Institute, whether it's our religious leaders, whether it's elected officials, whether it's anyone out there in the community, just look behind me. There's an entire community of people that want to help, want to make sure that you have the opportunity to not only get out of that life, but to also realize all of your dreams and be the best version of yourselves. So that's what brings us here today. What happened yesterday is not normal, and we will not allow it to be normalized. It's not who we are. It's unacceptable. And we are here as a support to make sure we interrupt this cycle of violence.
Okay. I think everybody got such an excellent
Tonight, the
excellent representation of what we're talking about here. Right? Talking about drugs, guns, why all those things exist and the issues thereof. So I'm going to go into closing here real quick. I'll tell you something totally off topic. I feel like I've addressed everything, every grievance I have in there. But ultimately, the only way for this to be dealt with, in my only personal recommendation, above all things that I would say, is that you need to try to find Jesus. And I'm not saying that as a joke or to be facetious. We're in a time now where we need God more than we realize. I believe if you ask for him to come into your life and to guide and protect you and to deliver you from evil, you'll do that. And maybe it's something like that could make all the difference in this. So that's about all we have for tonight. I hope everyone has a great weekend. And I look forward to doing some other stuff here. So stay tuned, and thanks for checking in to Nikki Bobby. Have a good night.